Welcome to Business English Podcast. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into performance review communication.
Okay.
You shared an episode with us called How to Ace Your Performance Review.
Right.
And it is jam-packed full of insights, let me tell you.
Yeah, what's interesting about performance reviews is they often trigger our brain's survival response.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like our brain sees a performance review and thinks saber-toothed tiger. And it kicks us into that fight or flight mode.
So that's why we always feel so nervous and
Exactly.
Okay, so how do we overcome that? How do we use that to our advantage?
Well, by understanding that response, you can actually manage it and use it to your benefit.
Okay.
So think about it this way. You're not running from a tiger. You're strategically navigating a conversation that can shape your career.
That's a much better way to think about it.
Yeah.
So where do we start with that?
Well, the first 90 seconds of how you address each topic can make or break your review.
Wow.
Yeah. Research shows that they determine 73% of successful outcomes. And top performers, they instinctively use what I call a trust, competence, vision, language framework.
Okay.
So they project trustworthiness by acknowledging feedback. They showcase competence by highlighting their relevant skills and experience. And they articulate a clear vision for their future contributions.
So it's not just what you say, it's how you say it.
Exactly.
Right.
Now let's move on to a common challenge. Articulating achievements effectively.
Okay.
Have you ever felt like your accomplishments sound more impressive in your head than when you describe them during a review?
All the time.
Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of people fall into the trap of vague descriptions. Instead, try using what I call the impact action context framework.
Okay.
This means starting with the impact your work had.
Okay.
Then describing the actions you took, and finally providing context by connecting your achievements to the larger company goals.
Okay, so can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say you manage a product launch successfully.
Okay.
Instead of saying, I managed the product launch, try something like, I orchestrated a cross-functional product launch that exceeded revenue projections by 40% and established our foothold in 3 new market segments.
Oh, okay, so it's more specific.
Exactly.
It's not just like, oh yeah, it went well. It's like, this is what I did, these were the results.
Exactly. Notice how strong action verbs like orchestrated add impact. And incorporating data points, those numbers, makes it even more compelling.
Yeah.
And by mentioning those new market segments, you're connecting your achievement to a larger strategic context.
Yeah, okay, so it's taking those achievements and making them matter to the bigger picture.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, even achievements that are harder to quantify can be articulated effectively using this framework.
Oh, okay.
Let's say you improved communication within your team. Instead of saying, I improved team communication, you could say, by implementing a new communication strategy, I facilitated more effective collaboration within the team, which resulted in a 20% reduction in project delays and a 15% increase in team productivity.
So you're taking something that is kind of hard to measure, like team communication, and you're finding ways to measure it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're highlighting those positive outcomes.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Now let's talk about another critical aspect, discussing challenges.
Ooh, yeah, that's a tough one.
Right. A lot of professionals dread this part of their review, but it can actually be a fantastic opportunity to demonstrate your problem-solving skills and strategic thinking.
So you're saying don't shy away from the challenge.
Exactly.
Oh.
What's interesting is that research shows that professionals who effectively discuss challenges are actually more likely to get promotions.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yes.
Okay.
It's about demonstrating how you navigate difficult situations, not avoiding them altogether.
So how do we do that? How do we discuss challenges effectively?
The key is to reframe challenges as opportunities for growth and learning.
Okay.
Instead of minimizing problems, use what I call the challenge conversion framework.
Okay.
So acknowledge the challenge, describe the actions you took to address it, highlight the positive outcomes,
Okay.
and connect the lessons learned to future performance.
Okay, so can you give me like a for instance what?
Sure. Let's say your team faced a major software launch delay.
Oh, no.
Right. Instead of saying, we encountered unexpected technical issues, which makes it sound like it's out of your control,
Yeah.
you could say, we identified critical integration complexities that led us to develop a more robust testing protocol. This new protocol has now become the department standard, preventing similar issues across all projects and ultimately saving the company an estimated $50,000 in potential downtime.
So you're taking this delay and you're saying, okay, yes, this happened, but look at what we learned from it, and this is how it's going to benefit us in the future.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
So it's not about pretending challenges didn't happen. It's about showcasing your ability to learn from them and turn them into opportunities for improvement.
I like that a lot.
Now, what about discussing future plans and aspirations during performance reviews?
Okay.
How much emphasis should we place on that aspect?
Well, I mean, I always thought it was important to talk about what you wanted to do next.
You're right, it is important.
Okay.
And studies show that the language you use when talking about your aspirations is actually more influential in promotion decisions than discussions about past achievements.
Oh, wow. Really? So it's not just about proving what you've done, it's about what you're going to do.
Exactly. It's about demonstrating your vision, your ambition, and your ability to align your goals with the company's future.
Okay, so how do we do that effectively?
So instead of simply stating your desires, use what I call the strategic vision articulation framework.
Right.
This involves framing your aspirations in terms of value creation for the organization.
So not just, I want to do this, it's, this is how this is going to benefit the company.
Exactly.
Okay.
Let's say you want to take on more leadership responsibilities.
Oh.
Instead of saying, I'd like to lead more projects, you could say, I've identified an opportunity to spearhead our digital transformation initiatives, leveraging my technical expertise while developing our team's capacity for innovation.
Oh, okay. So you're not just saying, like, I want to be the boss. You're saying, I want to use my skills to help lead the company in a new direction.
Exactly.
Okay.
You're painting a picture of mutual growth and value creation, which is much more compelling than simply expressing a personal desire.
I like that a lot.
Now, let's talk about a critical aspect of performance review communication, especially in today's global business landscape: navigating cultural nuances.
Uh-huh.
It's fascinating how a phrase that might launch a career in one culture could be completely misinterpreted in another.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things we need to keep in mind when we're communicating across cultures?
Well, research shows that a staggering 68% of misunderstandings in cross-cultural performance reviews weren't about what was said, but how it was said.
Oh, so it's not the words themselves, it's the way you say them.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's where what I call the global communication compass comes into play.
Yeah.
It helps you adjust your language and style to resonate with different cultural contexts.
Okay, so how do we use this global communication compass? Can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say you're working in a culture that values humility and teamwork,
Okay.
and you want to highlight your achievements.
Right.
Instead of saying, I single-handedly exceeded my targets, which might come off as boastful,
Yeah.
you could say, through the collaborative efforts of our team, we were able to achieve exceptional results.
Oh, so you're giving credit to the team.
Exactly.
Right.
It's about understanding those nuances
Yeah.
and tailoring your communication style
Ugh.
to make sure your message is received positively and interpreted correctly.
So it's not about like downplaying your role. It's just framing it in a way that it's
Yeah.
going to be received better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, adapting doesn't mean completely changing who you are. It's
Uh-huh.
more about what I call communication code switching.
Okay.
So it's that ability to adjust your language and delivery based on the cultural context. For instance, in some cultures, direct eye contact is a sign of respect, while in others, it can be seen as confrontational.
Yeah.
So just being observant and adapting your style based on those cues.
Oh, that's a good point.
Now, with the rise of remote work,
Yeah.
mastering virtual performance reviews has become essential.
Right.
And guess what? This new landscape demands a whole new set of communication skills.
Well, yeah, because it's not the same as being in person.
Exactly.
Okay, so what are some of the things we need to think about when we're doing these virtual reviews?
Well, it's about understanding that the virtual environment presents both challenges and opportunities. Research shows that professionals who master what I call digital presence patterns are far more likely to achieve their desired outcomes compared to those who simply try to replicate their in-person techniques.
So you can't just pretend you're in the office. You've got to adapt to this new way of doing things.
Exactly. Think of it as learning a new language.
Okay.
It's about leveraging the unique advantages of this format, not fighting against it.
Okay.
What I call the virtual impact matrix is revolutionizing how top performers approach these interactions.
Okay.
It involves mastering 3 key elements: digital presence mastery, technology integration, and remote rapport building.
Okay, let's break those down a little bit. So
Uh-
what is digital presence mastery?
So that's about commanding attention through the screen.
Okay.
So it involves optimizing your visual presentation, like lighting and background, and using effective nonverbal cues even with limited visibility.
So even though they can't see all of you, You still got to think about your posture and how you're presenting yourself.
Yeah.
Exactly. And using techniques like micro-expression maximization to emphasize those expressions and upper body language.
Also,
Since those traditional cues are limited in the virtual setting.
that's a good point.
Now, what about technology integration?
Okay.
How can we strategically use technology during virtual reviews?
Yeah.
Well, this involves using virtual tools to enhance your message.
Okay.
For instance, sharing your screen to present a concise visual summary of your achievements.
Okay.
Or strategically positioning your camera so your face is well lit and your background is professional.
Right.
You want the setting to support your message.
That's setting the stage, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, remote rapport building is crucial for creating that connection even through a screen.
Right.
This involves active listening, asking engaging questions, and using your tone of voice to convey warmth and authenticity.
Oh, so even though we're not in person, we still need to, like, create that connection.
Exactly. You need to bridge that virtual gap.
Okay, I like that.
And remember, there are unique advantages to this format.
Okay, I like what?
For instance, you can have notes readily available without it seeming unprofessional.
Oh, that's true.
Right. Think of those power phrases and key data points we talked about earlier.
Right.
You can have them right there
So you don't forget.
to ensure you're communicating clearly and effectively.
Yeah, it's like having a little cheat sheet.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, let's move on to a communication element that has a huge impact on how your message is received, both in person and virtually: nonverbal communication.
Right. Body language.
Yes.
So what are some of the things we need to think about in terms of body language when we're in these performance reviews?
Well, studies show that when top executives deliver impactful messages, only 35% of their impact comes from the words they use.
Wow, really?
Yeah, the remaining 65% is attributed to nonverbal communication.
So more than half of what you're saying is not actually coming out of your mouth.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay.
So mastering nonverbal communication is especially important during performance reviews.
Because it can convey confidence, competence,
Okay.
and even influence how your messages are interpreted.
So what are some nonverbal cues that we should be focusing on?
What I call the executive presence triad.
Okay.
Voice modulation, facial engagement, and postural alignment
Yep.
all play a significant role in how others perceive you. And top performers use what I call the silent impact framework
Okay.
to make sure their verbal and nonverbal messages are in sync.
Okay, so tell me a little bit more about the silent impact framework. How do we use this?
Well, it all starts with understanding what I call the first 7 seconds principle.
Okay.
Those initial moments when you enter a room or appear on screen, they set the tone for everything that follows.
It's like making a first impression.
Exactly.
Oh.
Your nonverbal signals during that time speak volumes about your confidence and presence.
You want to make sure that you're projecting confidence from the very beginning.
Exactly.
All right.
Now, let's talk about vocal architecture. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it.
Right.
Your voice can convey confidence, authority, and even empathy.
Okay, so thinking about our tone and our pace and how we're using our voice.
Exactly.
Right.
Think of your voice as having these 3 key elements:
Yeah.
pitch variation, pace modulation, and strategic pausing.
Okay, so how do we use those things effectively during these discussions?
Instead of rushing through your achievements, try purposeful pacing.
Okay.
Create moments of impact by strategically slowing down, deepening your voice, and incorporating those micro pauses
pauses, yeah.
to let those key points resonate.
Yeah, because sometimes when you just talk, it all blends together.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now let's move on to facial expressions,
Okay.
because they can either support or sabotage your message.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I can see how that would happen.
So how do we make sure our expressions are working for us, not against us?
Yeah.
Well, research shows that maintaining engaged expression balance,
Okay.
which is finding that sweet spot between confidence and approachability.
Actually triggers trust responses in evaluators.
So you're not like super serious, but you're also not like smiling the whole time.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about aligning your facial expressions with your message
Yeah.
and the overall tone of the conversation,
Okay.
being authentic and engaging while conveying confidence and competence.
Now, are there any specific techniques for using facial expressions strategically?
Yes. What I call gestural punctuation.
Okay.
It involves using precise, purposeful hand movements to emphasize key points,
Okay.
but keeping those movements contained within the frame of the camera.
So you're not like waving your hands around like this.
Exactly. You're not being too distracting.
Okay.
And remember, posture is important too.
Right.
Mastering what I call the postural power position can make a big difference.
So sitting up straight.
Aim for a posture that conveys engaged confidence without being too stiff or too relaxed.
Right. All right.
Finding that balance between authority and approachability.
So it's almost like you're trying to like take up space, but not too much space.
Exactly. You want to project confidence and competence while still appearing open to feedback.
This is all such great advice. It's so interesting to think about like all of these little things that we don't even realize we're doing that are actually saying so much.
Right.
Yeah.
Your nonverbal communication is constantly sending signals.
Right.
And mastering those cues can significantly impact how your messages are perceived and ultimately your success in those performance reviews.
You know, even with all this preparation, and even if we do all of this correctly, sometimes conversations take unexpected turns.
Of course.
Like what happens when we get some challenging feedback or we get thrown off script?
That's a great point. It's inevitable that we'll face those unexpected turns, even with the best preparation.
Yeah.
But how we handle those situations often leaves a more lasting impression than our planned responses.
So it's not about avoiding them altogether, it's about being able to recover.
Precisely. In fact, analysis of numerous performance reviews revealed that professionals who exhibited strong strategic recovery patterns often received higher ratings than those who experienced perfectly smooth reviews.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah.
So it's not about it being perfect, it's about how you handle it when it's not.
Exactly. Those challenging moments can actually become opportunities to demonstrate your leadership potential.
Okay.
I call this the pressure point principle.
Okay.
Turning difficult situations into moments that highlight your ability to think on your feet and navigate complexity.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we navigate those moments?
Well, it's helpful to have a framework in place.
Okay.
So we recommend what we call the conversation reset framework,
Okay.
which is all about transforming potential confrontations into constructive dialogues.
Okay.
So let me give you an example. Let's say you receive some unexpected criticism about a project.
Okay.
Instead of getting defensive, you could use what I call the acknowledge, bridge, reframe technique. So first, you acknowledge the concern without getting defensive.
Yeah.
You might say something like, I appreciate your feedback on this project.
Okay.
Then you bridge to a more constructive discussion.
Okay.
Maybe by saying, I understand your concerns about the timeline. Let's discuss the factors that impacted the schedule and what we can do to prevent similar delays in the future.
Okay.
And then finally, you reframe the challenge as an opportunity for improvement,
Okay.
highlighting those steps you've taken or will take to address the concerns raised.
So you're not just like taking the blame.
Right.
You're also saying, okay, but this is what we're going to do to fix it.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
It shows that you're open to feedback, you're willing to learn, and you're proactive in finding solutions.
Okay.
Now, let me introduce you to what we call the REACT method.
Good.
It's another helpful framework for navigating those challenging conversations.
Yeah.
And it involves 5 key steps.
Okay.
Recognize the concern without defensiveness.
Uh-huh.
Engage with authentic curiosity. Align with shared objectives.
Okay.
Construct a path forward.
Uh-huh.
And transform the challenge into an opportunity.
So it's all about taking that challenge and finding something positive from it.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about shifting from a defensive mindset to a collaborative one.
About that.
Now, what are some other techniques that can help us stay composed and handle challenging feedback gracefully?
Yeah, because that can be tough.
It can be.
Yeah.
Well, a great technique is what I call dialogue pivoting.
Okay.
Acknowledge the feedback, maintain your composure,
Yeah.
and redirect the conversation toward constructive solutions.
Okay.
For example, if someone comments on your leadership style,
Okay.
you might say, I appreciate your perspective. Could you share specific examples where you see opportunities for my leadership development? That would help me create a targeted improvement plan aligned with our team's needs.
Oh, so you're taking that and saying, okay, give me something concrete that I can work on.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
shows that you're open to feedback, willing to learn,
Right.
and proactive in seeking solutions.
I like that.
Now, remember that the language you use in these situations matters.
Okay.
So instead of saying, let me defend my position,
Right.
which can sound a little combative.
Yeah, you're on the attack.
Exactly.
Right.
Try using pressure response language,
Right.
such as, that's an interesting perspective. let's explore this together.
Oh, okay. So you're making it more collaborative.
Exactly.
Right.
It's about showing that you value their perspective and are open to exploring solutions together.
I like that a lot.
Now, one of the most effective techniques for demonstrating leadership during these challenging moments is what I call recovery elevation.
Okay.
It's about taking those moments of potential setback and using them as opportunities to showcase your strategic thinking and problem-solving abilities.
So you're turning it into a positive.
Exactly.
Oh, no.
Let's say you're asked some unexpected questions about your team's performance metrics. Instead of simply defending your team's performance, you could elevate the discussion by saying something like, "That's an important point. Our team has been focusing on mention a specific initiative or area of improvement. We've implemented mention-specific strategies or actions to address these challenges, and we are already seeing positive results in mention-specific metrics or areas of improvement. We'll continue to monitor this closely and make adjustments as needed to ensure we meet our targets and contribute to the company's overall success."
So you're acknowledging the problem, but you're also highlighting the solutions that you're already putting into place.
Exactly.
Right.
It's about showing that you're not just aware of the challenges.
Yeah,
You're actively working to find solutions and drive those positive outcomes.
that's a good point.
Now, another crucial skill for navigating these challenging moments is mastering the art of what I call the bridge back technique.
Okay, what is that?
The bridge back is a way to gracefully return to your key messages after those unexpected detours or challenging questions.
Okay.
So acknowledge those questions,
Right.
but maintain control of the narrative.
Uh-huh.
Guide the conversation back to the points you want to emphasize.
So you might get, taken off on a tangent, but you're able to come back to what you really want to talk about.
Exactly.
Okay, I think.
It's a valuable skill for staying on track and making sure your message is heard, even when the conversation takes those unexpected turns.
It's like having a little roadmap.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, let's shift our focus to one of the most overlooked yet powerful skills in performance review communication: active listening.
Right, listening.
Yes.
We always talk about this, but it's really important.
It really is, and it goes far beyond passively hearing words.
Okay.
It's about engaging deeply with the speaker's message,
Uh-huh.
seeking to understand their perspective, and responding thoughtfully.
So it's not just about waiting for your turn to talk. It's about actually hearing what they have to say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And research has shown that the most successful professionals spend 60% of their review time listening, not talking.
Wow, really? So the majority of the time, you should be listening.
Exactly.
I'd say.
It's fascinating how active listening can transform those discussions from one-sided monologues
Uh-huh.
into powerful dialogues that benefit both parties involved.
Right, so it's a two-way street.
Exactly.
Okay.
By truly listening to your reviewer, you can gather valuable insights, build rapport,
Right.
and uncover hidden opportunities.
So what are some of the benefits of being a good active listener?
Well, it creates that more collaborative and productive conversation.
Okay.
And it's about making that conscious effort to understand not just the words being spoken,
Uh-huh.
but also the underlying emotions, motivations, and intentions behind those words.
So you're really trying to understand where they're coming from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And professionals who master what I call strategic listening patterns are more likely to identify and capitalize on those career advancement opportunities during these discussions.
Wow, really?
Yes.
So it's not just about being polite, it's about helping your career.
Exactly. It's about turning passive hearing into active career intelligence gathering.
I like that.
Now, how do we develop these strategic listening patterns? What are some key techniques?
Yep.
One effective approach is what I call the active response framework.
Yeah.
So instead of passively absorbing information, you actively respond to what's being said
Okay.
through verbal and nonverbal cues,
Wow.
reflecting back key points,
Okay.
asking clarifying questions, and summarizing to ensure a shared understanding.
So you're showing them that you're listening.
Exactly.
Right.
It's about moving from passive absorption to active engagement in the conversation.
Right. So you're not just a sponge, you're actually participating.
Precisely.
Okay.
Now, I know this can be challenging,
Yeah.
especially if you're nervous or focused on what you want to say next,
Right.
but it does take practice,
Uh-huh.
but the rewards are worth the effort.
Okay, so what are some things we can do to show that we're actively listening?
One technique is called echo-enhanced listening. So you're reflecting back key points to the speaker, maybe using phrases like, So what you're saying is,
Okay.
or if I understand correctly, you're concerned about.
So you're making sure that you're both on the same page.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's a simple yet powerful way to demonstrate that you are actively listening and processing the information.
I like that.
Another effective technique is what I call the confirmation loop.
Okay.
So instead of just nodding your head, use brief strategic response phrases
Okay.
to confirm your understanding
Uh-huh.
and encourage the speaker to elaborate.
Okay.
You might say things like, "That makes sense. I see your point."
Okay.
Or, "Tell me more about that."
So you're keeping the conversation flowing
Exactly.
and you're showing that you're interested?
Precisely.
Okay.
Now, here's a surprising but powerful technique. Strategic silence.
Silence.
Yes, I
Okay.
know, it might seem counterintuitive.
Yeah, a little bit.
But well-placed moments of silence can be incredibly powerful. Because by allowing for those moments of quiet contemplation,
Yeah.
you create space for the speaker to elaborate, gather their thoughts,
Oh.
and
Mhm.
potentially reveal valuable insights that they might not have shared otherwise.
So it's not about filling every silence, it's about letting those silences breathe a little bit.
Exactly.
Okay.
And when you do speak, make sure your questions demonstrate both insight and strategic thinking.
So how do we ask better questions?
Well, use what I call question architecture.
Okay.
You're crafting questions that go beyond seeking basic information
Okay.
and instead demonstrate a deeper understanding of the topic and your strategic thinking abilities.
So not just like, what do you think of my performance, but something a little bit deeper.
Exactly.
Okay.
Instead of that, you might ask, how do you see my current contributions aligning with the department's evolving priorities?
Oh, okay. So you're showing that you're thinking about the bigger picture.
Precisely.
Oh.
That type of question shows that you're thinking strategically about your role within the organization and how you can best contribute to its success.
I like that a lot.
Now, I'm curious to hear from someone who's seen it all, someone who has witnessed firsthand the impact of effective communication and performance reviews.
Yeah, me too. Let's bring in an expert.
Let's hear from Jennifer Chen, Global Head of Talent Development at a Fortune 100 tech company.
Wow.
She has overseen more than 10,000 performance reviews across 3 continents.
She's seen a lot.
She has.
Yeah.
What are some of the most powerful communication patterns she's observed in successful performance reviews?
Yeah, tell me everything.
Well, Jennifer emphasizes that the most successful professionals, they don't simply communicate achievements,
Okay.
they orchestrate conversations.
I love that, orchestrate. It implies a level of intentionality and strategic thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jennifer shared an example of a mid-level manager who completely transformed her career trajectory in one review
Oh, wow.
by using what she calls strategic story architecture.
Okay. How does that work?
Instead of simply listing her accomplishments, she created a compelling narrative
Uh-huh.
that connected her individual contributions to the larger organizational objective.
So it's like telling a story.
Exactly.
Okay.
For instance, instead of saying, "I managed 6 successful projects,"
Right.
she said, "I identified an opportunity to streamline our project management approach, which led to a 40% efficiency increase across all 6 initiatives, creating a framework that's now being adopted company-wide."
Oh, so she's taking what she did and showing how it's going to benefit the entire company.
Exactly. It's not just about stating facts. It's
Right.
about weaving them into a compelling story
Mm-hmm.
that highlights your value and contribution to the organization.
I like that.
What other insights did Jennifer share about common mistakes professionals make during performance reviews? She noticed that many professionals focus so intently on what they want to say that they miss crucial signals from their evaluators. She calls this being caught in a transmission trap.
So they're so focused on what they're going to say that they're not listening.
Exactly.
Okay.
To avoid this trap, Jennifer recommends using what she calls the response radar technique,
Okay.
which involves reading both the verbal and nonverbal cues from your reviewer
Right.
and adjusting your communication accordingly in real time.
So you're paying attention to their body language.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's like having a conversation
Uh-huh.
rather than delivering a rehearsed speech.
So you need to be flexible and adapt.
Exactly.
Okay.
Jennifer also highlighted the importance of cultural awareness in communication,
Right.
especially in today's global business world.
Yeah.
And she emphasizes the importance of mastering what she calls cultural communication calibration.
Okay.
This involves adjusting your language and communication style based on the cultural norms and expectations of your audience.
So how do we do that?
She mentioned a brilliant executive who was struggling in reviews
Uh-huh.
until she learned to adopt her achievement language. or based on the cultural context.
Okay.
So, for example, in Western contexts, she would say, I drove the initiative.
Oh.
But in Asian markets, she would say, our team collaborated to achieve this.
So it's the same accomplishment, but just phrased differently.
To resonate with those cultural values.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Now, here's a surprising insight Jennifer shared that really emphasizes the importance of active listening.
Okay.
After analyzing thousands of reviews, her team discovered that the most successful professionals actually spent more time planning their listening strategy than their speaking points.
Wow.
These high performers use what Jennifer calls the strategic listening framework,
Okay.
a method of turning passive hearing into active intelligence gathering.
So you're not just listening to respond, you're listening to understand.
Exactly.
Right.
You're gathering information that can inform your responses and help you steer the conversation in a way that benefits your career trajectory.
Oh, so you're using listening as a tool.
Precisely.
Okay.
I like that. Now, let's move on to something incredibly practical and valuable.
Okay.
Building a library of power phrases that can instantly elevate your performance review communication.
Yes. This is what I've been waiting for.
Right.
Yeah.
This is where we decode those specific phrases that can transform ordinary performance reviews into career catalysts.
Let's do it.
So what are some key principles when crafting these power phrases?
Yeah.
Well, one important concept is understanding what I call impact triggers.
Okay.
These are specific language patterns that have been shown to consistently lead to positive evaluation outcomes.
So it's not just about using big words, it's about using the right words.
Exactly.
Okay.
What I call the phrase architecture framework shows that the most effective responses follow a specific structure.
Okay.
For instance, instead of saying, I helped improve team performance,
Okay.
try saying, I implemented systematic improvements that elevated team efficiency by 45% while reducing operational costs. Oh, okay, so it's more specific.
Exactly, and you're giving numbers.
And notice how it follows what I call the value action impact sequence.
Okay, explain that to me.
So you start with the value delivered,
Uh-huh.
you describe the action taken,
Okay.
and then you conclude with the positive impact of that action.
So it's a nice little package.
Exactly.
Okay.
This framework makes your achievements very clear, concise, and memorable.
Are there any formulas that we can use to structure these power phrases?
Yes. A great tool is what I call the impact phrase formula.
Okay.
It consists of 6 key elements.
Okay.
First, you initiate, maybe by saying something like, I spearheaded.
Okay.
Then you measure the impact with concrete data, like resulting in a 40% increase.
Okay.
Next, you describe the process, perhaps by saying something like, through systematic implementation.
Okay.
Then you highlight the action with a phrase like, by developing and executing.
Uh-huh.
Then you emphasize collaboration, maybe with phrases like, while leading cross-functional teams. And finally, you showcase the transformation, maybe by saying something like, creating sustainable improvements.
Okay, so you're taking that accomplishment and you're making it a story.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Now remember, these power phrases should always be authentic to your experience.
Right, you're not making things up.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about using language to articulate the real value that you've created.
You're right.
Now let me share one final technique for crafting powerful achievement statements.
Okay.
What I call the future value bridge.
Okay.
So instead of simply ending your statement with the results achieved, connect those achievements to future potential.
Okay, so you're taking what you did and you're saying, this is how it's going to help us in the future.
Exactly.
Stop.
For instance, instead of saying, this initiative generated $1 million in revenue,
Right.
you might say, this initiative generated $1 million in revenue and established a scalable framework for future growth in emerging markets.
Okay, so it's not just about the past, it's about the future.
Precisely. Now, let's put all of these powerful language patterns into practice.
Yes, let's do.
With some real-world scenarios.
Okay.
We're going to engage in what I call performance review simulation training.
Oh, I like that.
We'll walk through common scenarios
Right.
that challenge even the most seasoned professionals.
Huh.
And I'll show you how to navigate them using the communication frameworks we've discussed.
Okay, I'm ready.
Let's start with scenario 1, the unexpected challenge question.
Okay.
Imagine you're smoothly discussing your accomplishments
Uh-huh.
when your reviewer suddenly says, yes, but what about the Thompson project delays?
Ooh, yeah.
This is what I call a critical moment of truth.
Okay.
It's a test of your ability to think on your feet
Right.
and handle pressure gracefully.
Yeah, that would definitely throw me off.
Now, instead of getting flustered or defensive,
Right.
watch how a top performer would handle this using what I call the challenge to opportunity framework.
Okay, show me.
They wouldn't say, well, yes, there were some delays, which sounds passive and doesn't demonstrate strategic thinking.
Right.
Instead, they would say something like, the Thompson project revealed valuable insights about our project management processes. By identifying early warning signals, we implemented new tracking systems that have since prevented similar delays across all departments, actually accelerating our current project timelines by 25%.
So they're not shying away from the challenge.
Exactly.
They're embracing it.
They're highlighting those lessons learned
Wow.
and showcasing the positive outcomes that resulted from those challenges.
Okay, so it's turning that negative into a positive.
Exactly. They turn a potential negative into a positive by demonstrating their problem-solving abilities
Okay.
and strategic thinking.
So it's not about pretending it didn't happen.
Right.
It's about what you learned from it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now let's move on to scenario 2, the ambiguous feedback response.
Okay.
Your reviewer says your leadership style needs development.
Ooh.
This is what I call a clarity catalyst moment.
Okay.
Now, instead of simply asking, could you elaborate on that?
Right, which can feel a little like putting them on the spot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Try using what I call the precision question sequence.
Okay.
This involves asking specific questions that demonstrate your eagerness to learn and improve.
Okay, so give me an example.
A great response would be, I appreciate that insight. Could you share specific examples where you've seen opportunities for my leadership development? This would help me create a targeted improvement plan aligned with our team's needs.
Oh, so you're taking that feedback and you're saying, okay, help me understand this better so I can work on it.
Exactly.
Right.
It shows that you value their feedback, you're eager to learn, and you're proactive in seeking specific guidance to improve those leadership skills.
And it shifts the conversation from something that feels a little negative to something that feels more positive and collaborative.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Now let's move on to a scenario that I think many professionals struggle with. Scenario 3, the compensation discussion pivot.
Ooh, money, yeah.
You try to bring up salary expectations,
Right.
but your reviewer says, let's stick to performance discussion for now.
Yeah, I've been there.
Right.
Yeah.
This is what I call a strategic redirect opportunity.
Okay.
Now, instead of simply saying, okay, we can discuss it later, which puts you in a passive position,
Right.
try using what I call the value bridge technique.
Okay.
This involves connecting your performance discussion to the value you've created for the organization,
Okay.
subtly paving the way for that future compensation conversation.
So you're reminding them of your worth.
Exactly.
Okay.
You might say, I understand. Let me share how my expanded responsibilities and measurable impacts have created additional value for the organization, which will provide context for our future compensation discussion.
Oh, that's a good one. So you're not demanding a raise, but you're saying, hey, remember all this great stuff I did? Let's talk about how that translates into my salary.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
It's about demonstrating your value strategically and confidently without appearing demanding or pushy.
Okay, that's a good point.
Now let's move on to a scenario that can be particularly challenging.
Okay.
The innovation challenge.
Okay.
Your reviewer says, we need more innovative thinking from your department.
Ooh, okay.
Now, this can feel like a pointed critique.
Yeah, especially if you feel like you're already being innovative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, instead of defensively saying, yes, we're working on being more innovative,
Right.
try using what I call the future vision framework.
Okay.
So a powerful response would be, I've identified 3 key areas where we can drive innovation. First, implementing an idea incubation system I've designed. Second, creating cross-functional innovation teams. And third, establishing metrics to track and scale successful innovations. Would you like me to outline the specific implementation strategy I've developed?
Wow.
Right.
Okay, so you're not just saying, yeah, we're working on it. You're saying, here are my ideas and I'm ready to go.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that a lot.
You're showcasing your strategic thinking
Uh-huh.
and demonstrating that you are already ahead of the game.
Right?
And by asking if they'd like to hear more, you're inviting them to collaborate and engage in a more in-depth discussion about your ideas.
So it's turning a potential negative into a positive.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, these scenarios aren't just practice exercises. They're opportunities to demonstrate executive-level thinking
Okay.
through strategic communication.
I like that.
Now, let's move on to another crucial aspect of performance reviews,
Okay.
Communicating metrics and data effectively.
Oh, the numbers.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, mastering the art of what I call data storytelling can transform how you present your accomplishments and showcase your impact.
So it's not just about presenting the numbers. It's about telling a story with them.
Exactly. Remember, numbers tell stories, but only if you speak their language fluently.
Okay, how do we do that?
Well, first, remember the memory impact principle.
Okay.
Executives remember only 5% of statistics presented in isolation.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, but that number jumps to 65% when those same numbers are woven into strategic narratives.
Oh, that's a big difference.
It is.
Okay.
So instead of simply saying, I increased sales by 45%,
Okay.
try saying, through strategic client engagement initiatives, we achieved a 45% revenue increase, translating to $2.3 million in additional annual revenue, while simultaneously improving customer satisfaction scores by 32%.
Okay, so you're not just saying sales went up. You're saying, here's what we did to make sales go up, and here's how much money we made.
Exactly. It's about connecting the dots and showing how your efforts led to those tangible, positive outcomes.
So it's not just numbers. It's the story behind the numbers.
Precisely.
Okay.
Now, what other techniques can we use to make data more engaging and memorable?
Yeah, because numbers can be kind of boring.
They can be.
Yeah.
A powerful framework is what I call the metric impact framework.
Okay.
It involves 3 key steps.
Okay.
Context, metrics, and impacts.
Okay, break those down for me.
So you start by setting the stage and providing context for the data.
Mm-hmm.
Then you present the metrics clearly and concisely.
Okay.
And finally, and most importantly, you connect those metrics to the broader business value, showcasing the impact of your work.
So you're not just saying, here are the numbers. You're saying, here's what these numbers mean for the company.
Precisely.
Okay.
So instead of just saying, our customer satisfaction score is 4.8 out of 5,
Right.
you might say, through targeted service enhancements, we achieved a 4.8 out of 5 customer satisfaction rating, placing us in the top 2% of our industry and driving a 40% increase in repeat business.
Okay, so you're giving it context. You're saying, we're not just good, we're better than everyone else.
Exactly. You've added that context
Uh-huh.
by highlighting the industry benchmark
Okay.
and showcase the impact by linking it to increased customer loyalty
Yeah, I like that.
and repeat business.
Okay.
Now, another great technique is using what I call the comparative context framework.
Okay.
This involves presenting data in comparison to previous periods, industry benchmarks,
Oh,
or other relevant metrics
Uh-huh.
to highlight the significance of the achievements.
Okay.
So instead of simply saying, we reduced costs by $100,000,
Okay.
you might say, we achieved a $100,000 cost reduction, representing a 23% improvement over last year, and setting a new benchmark for departmental efficiency.
Oh, so you're not just saying we saved money, you're saying we saved more money than we did last year.
Exactly.
And we're doing better than everyone else.
By providing that comparative context,
Right?
you highlight the magnitude of the achievement and its strategic significance.
Okay, I like that a lot.
Now, here's a powerful tip.
Okay.
When you're discussing metrics,
Uh-huh.
use what I call future value projection.
Okay.
Don't just focus on what happened in the past.
Huh.
Project the future impact of your achievements.
So kind of like what we were talking about before, taking those past achievements and connecting them to the future.
Exact. For instance, you might say, this 27% efficiency increase not only saved $300,000 this year, but also established a scalable framework projected to generate $1.2 million in savings over the next 3 years.
Oh, okay. So you're saying not only do we do this, but we're going to continue to do this, and it's going to save us even more money.
Precisely. It demonstrates that your contributions have a lasting impact
Right.
and contribute to the long-term success of the organization.
Okay, I like that.
Now, as we approach the final stretch of our deep dive,
Right.
let's explore this elusive quality of executive presence
Ooh, yes, executive presence.
and how we can cultivate it through our communication style.
I'm excited about this one.
So executive presence, it goes beyond simply holding a leadership title.
Right, it's how you carry yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how you communicate
Right.
and the impact you have on others.
It's like that aura that you have when you walk into a room.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Analysis of C-suite communication reveals that executive presence
Rough
isn't
number.
about speaking more. It's about what I call strategic word architecture.
Okay.
Top leaders use 20% fewer words,
Really?
but achieve 40% greater impact.
Wow. Okay.
So it's quality over quantity.
Yeah.
It's using language that is clear, concise, and impactful.
So how do we develop this strategic word architecture?
A great starting point is to understand what I call the executive communication matrix.
Okay.
It involves focusing on 3 key elements:
Okay.
precision, vision, and impact.
So choosing our words carefully.
Yes.
Having a clear vision.
Exactly.
And then focusing on the impact of our work.
Precisely.
Okay.
So for instance, instead of saying, I think we should try some new approaches,
Okay.
an executive presence statement would be, I've identified 3 strategic initiatives that will accelerate our market position.
So it's more direct.
Exactly. It conveys that sense of authority
Uh-huh.
and strategic vision.
It's like I'm not messing around.
Exactly.
Right.
And notice how it uses what I call collaborative leadership language. Instead of simply saying, I led the project,
Right.
you might say, I orchestrated a cross-functional initiative that aligned multiple stakeholders towards our strategic objectives.
Okay, so you're giving credit to other people,
Exactly.
but you're also highlighting your role in bringing everyone together.
Precisely.
Okay, I like that.
Now let's dive into some specific power presence patterns that can instantly elevate your communication style.
Okay.
Instead of saying, we had good results,
Okay.
which sounds rather bland,
Right.
an executive level statement would be, our strategic approach delivered exceptional outcomes that position us for sustainable growth.
So it's more impactful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It conveys a sense of confidence and strategic vision.
And it's more exciting.
It is.
Okay.
What other techniques can we use to enhance our executive presence?
Yeah.
Well, one powerful technique is future-focused framing,
Hmm.
which involves shifting the conversation from past achievements to future potential.
Okay.
So instead of dwelling on what's already been accomplished, you focus on how those accomplishments set the stage for future success
Right.
and continued growth.
So you're taking those past achievements and you're saying, this is how they're going to help us in the future.
Exactly. It demonstrates that you're not just focused on the past,
Right.
you're already thinking ahead
Okay.
and planning for the future.
So can you give me an example of how to use this technique?
Instead of simply saying, this initiative exceeded targets,
Okay.
try saying, this initiative not only exceeded targets, but also established a scalable framework for future market expansion.
Oh, okay. So you're taking that past success and you're saying, this is how it's going to help us grow in the future.
Precisely.
Okay, I like that.
Now remember, executive presence,
Uh-huh.
it's not about arrogance or dominance.
Right.
It's about communicating with clarity,
Uh-huh.
confidence,
Okay.
and a focus on strategic impact.
This has been so helpful.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how these little changes in how we communicate
Hmm.
can really make a big difference in how we're perceived.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about how we can take all of this information and turn it into action.
Okay.
What's the best way to start implementing these techniques?
Well, first remember that top performers use what we call the pre-review power hour.
Oh.
A strategic preparation method that can make all the difference.
Okay, tell me about the pre-review power hour. What does it involve?
It's not simply about rehearsing answers to common questions.
Right.
It's about strategically planning your communication strategy,
Okay.
reviewing the frameworks and techniques we've discussed,
Mm-hmm.
and identifying those key messages that you want to convey.
So it's about being prepared and not just winging it.
Exactly. Exactly. Preparation is key to success. Now, here's a helpful roadmap. The Impact Action Framework to guide your preparation and implementation.
Okay, I like a good action plan. Break it down for me.
So first, you inventory your achievements using that strategic value matrix we talked about earlier. Next, you map your metrics using that data storytelling framework to make sure you're presenting the data clearly, concisely, and in a compelling way.
Okay.
Then you practice your power phrases using the executive language patterns to refine your language and make sure your message is impactful.
Okay.
Next, you analyze potential challenges and prepare strategic responses using those frameworks we discussed
Right.
to make sure you're ready for anything.
Yeah, be prepared.
Then calibrate your nonverbal communication to make sure your body language, your tone, and your facial expressions are all aligned with your message
Okay.
and project confidence and competence.
Okay.
And finally, test your responses using our strategic pause technique to make sure you're creating impact and allowing those key points to resonate.
Wow. That's a lot, but it's good. It covers everything we talked about.
It does. Now remember, you don't have to implement everything all at once.
Right.
The most successful professionals use what we call progressive implementation.
So take it step by step.
Exactly.
Okay.
Choose one technique to focus on.
Maybe the achievement articulation framework. Once that feels natural, add the strategic listening pattern.
Okay, so just build on it.
Exactly.
One thing at a time.
Now, here's your immediate action plan. Today, record yourself using those power phrase patterns we discussed.
Okay.
Pay attention to your tone, your pace, and your clarity.
Okay.
Then, this week, practice the challenge response framework with a trusted colleague.
Okay.
Role play some challenging scenarios and get feedback on your responses.
Okay.
Finally, for your next review,
Yep.
aim to implement the full executive presence matrix.
Okay.
Focus on your body language, your voice modulation, and the strategic use of pauses to create a powerful and impactful presence.
So we're taking all of these tools and we're putting them to work.
Exactly.
This has been so helpful.
Now remember, your communication skills are your most valuable assets.
Right.
By using them strategically, you can transform your performance reviews from routine evaluations into career-defining moments. Yeah, it's not just a box to check off, it's an opportunity.
Exactly.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
Yeah.
I feel so much more prepared for my next performance review.
I'm glad to hear that. Remember, performance reviews are not just about evaluating past performance. They are opportunities to showcase your potential, demonstrate your value, and shape your future career trajectory.
This is great. I'm excited to put all of this into practice.
As you should be. Remember, we're here to support you on your journey to communication mastery.
This deep dive has been a fantastic journey. I've gained so many valuable insights and practical tools that I can apply right away to my next performance review.
And I'm confident that by implementing these techniques, you'll see a significant difference in your performance review conversations and your overall career trajectory.
Before we go, I'd love to hear your final thoughts on what listeners should really focus on as they start putting these techniques into practice.
Great question. If I had to boil it down to one key takeaway, it would be this. Performance reviews aren't simply about reporting on the past. They're about strategically communicating your value, showcasing your potential, and shaping your future.
That's a great takeaway. I love that.
And remember, communication is a skill that you can develop and refine over time. Embrace the journey.
Yeah.
Be patient with yourself.
Right.
And celebrate your progress along the way.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. This deep dive has been amazing.
It's been my pleasure, and I'm confident that you'll see fantastic results.
To our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into performance review mastery. Remember, your voice matters, your contributions are valuable, and your communication skills are the key to unlocking your full potential. We encourage you to subscribe to Business English Podcast, like this episode, share it with your network, and leave a comment below with your biggest takeaway or any questions you might have. Until next time, we wish you all the best in your career journeys and communication success.